Welcome to the Spotify Top 10 podcast, The Traitor. My name is Matthew. I'm a writer working in TV development, and I am a 100% faithful fan of the multi-award winning hit TV competition series, The Traitors. Most episodes of the podcast deep dive into individual episodes of The Traitors from around the world, but The Traitor also features interviews with contestants from the shows, including cast members from UK Seasons 1 and 2, US 1, Australia 1 and 2, and The Traitors Canada. Of course, this current season of the podcast has been dedicated to The Traitors New Zealand Season 2. I've been joined by 5 standout contestants from the show so far, and today, possibly for the final time, another fantastic player is joining me in the Traitors Conclave. Let's get right to it and find out who it is. Welcome to the podcast, one of the most impactful players of the Traitors New Zealand Season 2. We're joined by Noel. Noel, how are you doing today?
Oh, I'm just peachy, thanks.
Excellent. Now, Noel, I've been joined by your co-stars in New Zealand. We had Andrew in California. You're somewhere different altogether. Where are you joining us from?
Oh, I'm in New York City.
Yeah.
Home sweet home. Yeah. Hop the ship back here for the summer, so here I am.
I can see, the listeners can't see, I can see it looks very nice there. It looks a bit warmer than it is where I am.
Oh, it's lovely. It's very deceiving, yeah.
Good. Now, I do want to ask you a little bit more about that. Before we get there, before we go any further, we're going to set up our podcast game. This is The Traitor. So the mission for Noel and I from here on in is to tell a lie to one another at some point during our conversation. The lie has to be a fabrication or a made-up fact, big or small, about the traitors or about ourselves or anything else at all. For example, I could lie to Noel and say that I too am in New York, and really I'm not, I'm in the UK. However, my lie couldn't be that I think you really can't say the word esophagus, when actually I understand you can say it. I think you could say it. That would be a fake opinion. So we're looking for fake facts rather than pretend thoughts and feelings. Noel, are you ready to fulfill your castmates' fantasies and actually become a traitor?
Oh, I am deeply ready. I know Donna's going to love this one.
Yeah. Oh, we'll get there. That means our window of dishonesty begins now. Noel, I'm going to begin with a question from a listener. This is from Effie on Instagram, who simply asks, what brought Noel from New York to New Zealand?
Oh, that's an easy one. I've been in New Zealand, honestly, against my own will since I was born. No, I don't want to say against my own will because I love New Zealand deeply with all my heart. My mom is from New Zealand. So my mom is from Gore, which for anyone from New Zealand will know what Gore is. Actually, many of them won't because it's a very small, quiet, dumpy town on the southernmost part of New Zealand. And I got a lot of jokes on the show because a lot of them were North Islanders and Aucklanders who, in New Zealand, it's a very New Zealand thing here. They have their own connotation down in Southland. But, I got all the jokes from Gore. It's the armpit of New Zealand. Gore, the G is for gay. You hear all kinds of, and there's some really funny ones too. They get really creative and they're quite funny. So I can't be upset. But objectively, Gore does, take a lot of heat in New Zealand. So to come there and be like, I'm from Gore, like that's where they're like, where do you live? I'm like, Gore. It was quite a shock factor for a lot of them, many of whom had never even been to Gore. Where meanwhile, I've been to New Zealand growing up every other summer. I've been to all over the South Island, and I've never once stepped foot on the North Island, never been to Wellington or Auckland. And that to them came as a culture shock because it's like, I'm in America, I'm from New York, I'm from the urban capital of the country.
Yeah.
And then I go to New Zealand and it's like I'm from rural farm country, not the same.
So
that's.
Had you seen either the US seasons of The Traitors or had you seen New Zealand season 1 of The Traitors?
Before I applied, you mean?
Yeah.
No. I am actually an avid Survivor fan. But that's not what got me into the show either, actually. I mean, it all started because I was on this French dating show And I was telling my aunts about this at the family reunion because, mind you, I have like 50 cousins, 8 aunts, 8 uncles in New Zealand. It's kind of nuts. And she said, you should go on a game show here because I was planning on staying in the country for a few months. And I said, you know what? That's not a bad idea at all. And so I searched it up the day my mom and dad left because I was like, I don't know what to do. I've never been by myself in New Zealand before. And, the Traitors came up. I said, what is this? I've never heard of it. Looked it up, watched one episode or two when I applied, but I said to myself, they're not going to get back to you. You're just another face in a sea of names and faces. You'll never, hear anything. So I didn't bother. But then after I get a call back and I do the first interview, they were like, watch it so that And I'm glad they told me that because it is an entire world of gameplay and strategy, and I wouldn't have known had I not watched. So I absolutely got into it after that point, and I watched NZ1, UK1, UK2. I think I touched on the US seasons, but to be perfectly honest, I think maybe it's because I am American. I found a lot of the celebrity aspect of it to not be for me. And
Sure.
I think I'm biased because I'm part of a non-celebrity cast, but I just like the whole, you're a baker, a barber, a butcher, and a tailor. What do you do when you're put against each other? That's interesting to me. And it's really interesting, especially the US ones. I've seen bits and pieces. I've seen Parvati, who's my favorite Survivor player ever. She's made a killing on the show. Like, it's great to see. So I do want to get back into the US ones, absolutely.
Yeah. Do you think that's interesting to hear you're a Survivor fan? My co-host David Bloomberg, huge Survivor expert. Do you think you did that like inform how you played the game? Do you think because you made it all the way till episode 11? Did it help you out?
Not at all. I would love to be like, yes, I imported all the strategic gameplay from Survivor into the Traitors. Not at all. And I'll tell you what, I absolutely tried to bring in Survivor gameplay into the Traitors, and you can't because it's fundamentally a different game. And what I mean by that is I remember, I think it was day 3 or day 4. It was sometime before Death Row, very early. And I was trying to round up a group, and I noticed that, same as Bailey had noticed it, and I think her confessional made to the edit, where she said, I had noticed this group forming around Jane, and Jane had this group, and it was, it was Ben, it was Molly, it was Bree, and I got along with everyone, not just them, everyone swimmingly, so I was like, okay, that's an easy in. And, for me, that was kind of the basis of my, of an alliance in a way, and I had this idea of, like, it doesn't matter if they're a traitor or not, because that's what I mean when I say it's a fundamentally different game, is you can form an alliance, but you have no idea if one of those people is a traitor and they're manipulating you. In the Survivor, it's simply that you have to make it to the next vote, and you have to make sure you have a group that you can take to the end, but won't take you out. There's a lot. It gets much more complicated, I think, when you know that you're all on this level playing field. I actually think we're at a bit of an advantage, if anything, knowing that one of us may be a traitor, because it doesn't matter. You can ignore that fact altogether, because the truth of it is it really doesn't matter at that stage in the game, that early. It's just about who votes with you and who votes against you. And this was something that came into play in a later game too. I'd say mid to late game. And it's this idea of it doesn't matter who's a traitor or not. It's about getting to the next round and having a group that you can vote with. And if someone votes against the group, that casts more suspicion on them than, any sipping water or whatever we might have. You know what I mean?
Yeah, that's really interesting to hear you say that. And my co-host, my absent co-host, would definitely agree with that. That we often talk about how actually early on in the game, getting out traitors isn't really that important. What's important is just making it to the end, whatever way you can.
Yeah.
I want to ask you about some of the big events in the show and also some really trivial, silly things just for my own amusement. So,
absolutely.
One of the first things we hear from you in the opening episode is that you felt making judgments or predictions based on body language pretty pointless. Was it, and I agree with you, was it frustrating listening to other players make accusations based on quite trivial things like taking a drink of water?
In the moment, no, it wasn't frustrating at all, actually, because I'd hear Terry, and I get along quite well with Terry, and I'd hear Terry say, I'm convinced it's Jane. She took too much water. I was never like, stop focusing on Jane. I was like, have at it. If she gets out and she's a faithful and you're bad, she drank water, that's not on me. I took no heat there. I didn't really care, if other people were going after each other for water or body language. Although I do feel stupid now, but whatever. I feel stupid now that it's like, no, Terry, you nut job. We can't just vote her out 'cause she drank too much water. What are you, crazy? And now we find out that she very much was a traitor. Imagine me watching that and being like, ooh, I'm the one who was like, maybe we shouldn't kill her just for having fun. But to be fair, at the same time, like, I was very much of the opinion that day one, you cannot go off behavioral shit or like behavioral actions because you don't know how that person behaves. They're a complete faceless stranger to you. You have no idea what they do or why they do it. So to be like, oh, she drank water, I'm like, okay, maybe she was thirsty, you know?
Yeah.
Like we can't, yeah.
And I think you also showed a lot of insight when it came to Mark, a big player. I just interviewed Mark a couple of days ago. His episode is out now.
Oh, I didn't see it yet.
Listeners, if you haven't heard, you definitely want to download that one. Mark was, like you, kind of a top suspect for almost his entire time in the show.
Yes.
You voted for him once really early on, but then made it clear that you didn't think he was a traitor and you never voted for him again.
No.
Why did you not suspect him when so many other people kept circling him?
Yeah. So that first vote, I voted for him not because I was really convinced he was a traitor. I did not think he was a traitor. I did not think Ben. I did not think Mark was a traitor. I did not think Terry was a traitor. I did not think Jane was a traitor. My problem was I didn't think anyone else was a traitor except for Mike, who I'd mentioned. But I knew that he had there was a moment at the round table that did not make it to the edit that you don't have to include this. I want to explain it now. Is that I broke the silence and I said, excuse me, can I just say, Jane, I don't think it's you. Terry, I don't think it's you. And the reason I don't think that it's either of you is because you've both been the ones actively hunting traitors. And so for me to be a traitor and to be actively hunting them at the same time seems quite exhausting. So I just don't really suspect you two at this moment. And then Britt, lovely, wonderful, very intelligent Britt, said, who do you suspect? And I said, oh, I didn't want to say anything because I knew that would be, the next question to come my way. But I said, Mike, right after the mask came off, you had this giant red face and a bulging vein that was, kind of tell all. But I also said that I at the same time, I'm the one saying we can't go off these minor things. So it was hard. And I was careful to say, Mike, I suspect you, but I don't suspect you too much because me and Mike had a relationship from the beginning, and that doesn't get shown simply because it was a production thing. And I totally get it from their standpoint. A lot of it was off camera. So for example, when I got picked up in the car to go from Christchurch, where I was at the time, down to Timaru, which I had just been a week ago, I was picked up in the car with Mike and Jace, and we were allowed to talk, just not about anything gameplay oriented. So we talked about cats and work, as long as it wasn't too detailed. And Mike and I got on right away. And the thing about Mike is anytime I was in the car with him, I would say yeah, I'd love to be recruited if I was a traitor. I'd hate to be murdered. I'd rather be recruited. You know what I mean? And I just kind of would worm my way in there because Mike to me was Ben's Jane, if that makes sense. Ben knew that Jane was a traitor and was like, I'm just going to cushy up because I don't feel like taking this person on alone. I think it'll lead to being murdered or banished because of the backfire. So that's how I felt. I was like, maybe if Mike sees me as his only ally, he will take me on as a traitor. Because the thing is, Mike and I were very much in the same boat a lot of the game. Mike never really had a single particular group or even a single person who was their ally. And so for me, that was a really easy out because I also had no particular person, ally, group, anything. So me and Mike actually resonated with each other quite a bit and got on quite well. So I worked with Mike quite a bit throughout the show.
Yeah. And of course, the accusations soon started to turn towards you. And for some people, you were kind of a constant target. In fact, you received the most votes of anyone across the whole season. I have a couple of
the whole franchise. I'd be like, that'd be nuts, but I wouldn't even doubt it. But
I think you're third from the whole franchise.
Third? Okay.
Yeah. Which is not bad.
No, not at all.
I've got a couple of listener questions about this. First, Slim Shane on Instagram asks, how did you deal with those intense accusations? And then Joe has co-hosted with me on the podcast before. He loves the show. He's watched the whole season. And Joe asks, did you ever consider throwing in the towel? You know, was it just so much that you had enough and wanted to quit?
Yeah, of course. So I'll address the first question first.
Yeah.
How did I react to those first initial investigations? And the thing to note, too, is that I was chosen for death row, which I know now having seen the show. I did not know this at the time because I'd already had suspicion on me. Although I did, as I said, when I was on death row, I knew I was there because people had already thrown my name out. But that's the thing is prior to death row, I didn't understand any of the accusations, thrown against me. I understood after because there is that's the whole point of what the traitors did. I mean, anyone with, two pairs of eyes could see that, but that's okay. That they had this idea of, let's put all faithfuls on and make one of them look like the traitor, no matter who we get. But prior to that, I still had heat on me. And so prior to that, the heat on me was based on two things. One of which was this idea, who came up with it? I don't know. I think it was Kat, that I was dating Molly because of a lot of facts that were misconstrued. They're from the same area geographically, was the first idea, of course, but not at all true. I'm from New York. Molly, Vancouver, opposite side of the continent. Very big continent between us. I've never seen a girl in my life. And, the fact that we were both in New Zealand at the same time, both in, Dunedin is not Southland, but she's in Dunedin, which is very close. And they thought that was very keyed in. And I lived in Europe for some time. She was in Europe while I was in Europe. All very circumstantial evidence, which evidently was not true. Like nothing added up when you actually put it together. But these were great ideas to people that I'm clearly dating Molly. I don't know if you've seen the deleted scene that was it was put on Reddit, I believe, of Kat and Ben and Bree discussing the secret relationships between players. And again, didn't make it to the edit, which I understand because it was not a gameplay thing. That's what you want to keep it on. But it was strictly a personal thing where Kat kind of came at Molly and I at the round table and was like, I think you and you were dating. And me and Molly looked at each other, and Molly and I had gotten on great, but we were just laughing at the idea because it was just it was ridiculous. It was left field. So there was the Molly dating thing, and it was and the idea we're on the same visas. It's like, I have New Zealand citizenship. I'm not on a visa. You know what I mean? Just totally ludicrous information. Anyway, but the second thing was the sleeping thing where, I mean, for a rundown for anyone who has not been on the Traitors, what happens is they pull you from your bed at like 3 a.m. and then you're up at 5 a.m. and they pull you from your room. You have no sleep, no coffee, and this is what got to me. No coffee, no nothing. And they put you into a car and they blindfold you. They take you to a parking lot where you're thrown into a camper van with a bunch of people running around with mics and equipment, and they strip you dry and strap mics and shit on you. They throw you back in the car, and then you drive up to this manor, and away the game goes. But you have no idea what's going on up until that point. Nothing's staged. Nothing's, portrayed in a way that's not what it is. It very much is that. Point being, in the early days, all of the accusations against me were on sleep and on the Molly thing, and both of them were just totally ridiculous. So, it was hard. But at that point, I was like, you know what? If my suspicions are something this dumb of he sleeps too much and he's clearly dating Molly, then surely someone else will come under some similar suspicion. And I really don't need to worry about it too much. And then death row happened. And after the death row fiasco, which we won't delve into too much, there were many times when I considered just giving up. I considered giving up the day of death row when it was just like Bree and Andrew coming down on me. Because I was like, what's the point? I'm going to go to that round table. They're going to just take the shit on me. And I'm going to go, and that's it. So I might as well leave now, simply because for me, I came there since day one, and I said this on Death Row 2, Bree, to have fun. This is a fun thing, and I was just over it at that point, so I was like, I'll just leave. And I stuck it out. I'm glad I did. And then I made my way through the next few rounds until it was the Crystal Ball fortune-telling episode. And then I remember after that, I was very much like, well, this is some bullshit because no one even said my name. And then you pulled people quite literally from the dead to speak ill of me. And it was just like, that is so unfair that it's like I've avoided suspicion for like probably the longest I had, which was like 2 days, let's be real. But still, that's it's a record for me. And so for that to happen, and then you bring out everyone who's just like, yeah, nah, it's got to be Noel. It just really stung and it really dug deep in me. because I was just not happy at that point. I was not having fun. It was not like a fun thing I was doing for myself. It was something I was doing out of obligation, and I hate doing stuff out of obligation. So that was the main reason, really, that I was really considering just tossing it in and, being done with it because it wasn't fun, very simply.
Yeah. You mentioned, a couple of the reasons there why you think people were accusing you, like Molly, and one of those people was Andrew. Andrew was convinced you were a traitor, and of course,
Yes.
your main predator was Donna. In fact,
Yes.
we have the next question is someone on Instagram called Mrs. Donna Officer. It actually is Donna. Donna
I
has
was going to say,
asked
it
me.
probably is Donna. I think that is her Instagram handle. Yeah. Yeah.
Donna asks, well, she wants me to ask Noel if he forgives me for my tunnel vision. Do you forgive Donna?
Do I forgive Donna? Forget about it. If I saw Donna in front of me right now, I would do nothing except give Donna a big old hug. I love Donna from the bottom of my heart. She's an amazing woman. And I think a lot of people are going to, brush this off when I say this. I don't want to say laugh it off because I don't want to be mean to Donna, but I genuinely think that Donna is very intelligent because I remember there was a moment after Donna voted for me at the Whitney vote. So it was the night after I had the whole Andrew Noel fiasco. After that roundtable, we voted Whitney off, and Donna and Bailey were the sole people, because mind you, Bailey, of course, was the faithful at the time, to stick to their guns and vote for me because they were like, nope, I'm just going to vote for whoever's left from death row. And there was a scene where they came up to me and they were very upset and they said, I'm annoyed that we voted that way. And I was like, really? It's fine. If anything, I'm glad you did, because this is a game where there's nothing under your feet. You don't have any solid ground beneath you. Everything is shifting at every moment. You're living in an earthquake. So for you to stand your ground, literally, and hold your conviction and vote for me anyway, that speaks more to you as a person than it does as a player, as forget about the game. It's principally a good thing for you to stick to your morals, stick to your guns, and keep going with it. And that's what Donna did. So really, I applaud the women, if anything, because I also do not envy her. I could never be in her position. I don't want to be, where she's chasing down not just me all game, but also then to be the person up front with Bailey and to be told that she'd make the wrong choice. That was my nightmare. And that's why when I got out when I did, I said to myself, thank God, because I don't want to be, because I feel bad for that one person who's stuck at the last decision. And I do not envy Donna for a second. Do I forgive her? There's nothing to forgive. I mean, everyone had wrong opinions. I think it's a silly thing to get caught up in it. I mean, I suspected Molly. Andrew suspected me. It's just Bree suspected Andrew. It's just nuts. And it's like, that is the game. And if you can't get past the fact that it's a game, just go live under a cave your whole life and plot against the traitors and move rocks around in weird formations to play some weird game. But that is not me. I truly love Donna. And the thing about Donna, too, is we got on so well as people, and we still do. So I'm sure I'll be seeing her next time. And in terms of tunnel vision, I don't have any resentment towards Donna. I have nothing but love and sympathy because I truly do not envy her position. And of course because the thing is, I always said I was the scapegoat, but now Donna is the scapegoat for the viewers, because Donna's the one they can all point at and be like, ha, wrong choice. You're so not at all. The game is so different when you're in it. It's so much less. Waters are always muddied. So there's no way to tell who's what and what's what. So do I feel bad for Donna? 100%. Do I forgive her? No, because there's nothing to forgive, and I love her and I really wish her the best. Wonderful woman. Could she have played the game better? Yes, but so could have I. So could have even Bailey, who won the damn thing. You know what I mean? There's a lot. Like, why did Bailey target Donna? There's a lot of things you could point at and be, why'd they do this? So I definitely do. Of course, I forgive Donna, and I always gave her my little love hearts. We always had those when she voted for me, or vice versa, because that was our relationship. It was a thing. It was distrust, but mutual love.
Yeah, that's really sweet to hear. That's lovely. That you accept it is a game and nothing else, and so it's nothing is personal.
Yeah.
And Donna was on the podcast.
I know it's not
too. And she was
answer for you. I'm sorry. No, she's just lovely. That's the thing. If Donna was someone who was nasty, who spat my name out, or just was very erratic, like, it'd be very easy for me to be like, Donna, dumbass, what a bitch. But really, she's a brilliant woman, a really lovely person, and so it's hard for me and impossible for me to, really speak ill on her, No, because she's just someone who didn't really do anything wrong. They were just manipulated, and that could happen to any one of us. Everyone watching Donna too, who criticizes Donna, says, I would never make such a decision, and they're wrong because that is not the game. The game is meant to take you out of your livelihood, take you out of your normal situation, and provoke you and make you do something that's totally out of character. And that's exactly what I imagine Donna did, and what 90% of viewers who criticize Donna would do.
Yeah.
So anyone who's got a problem with Donna can take it up with me because I'm not having it.
We've talked quite a bit about the votes that you received from other people. I did want to ask about your voting habits. A couple of people in particular.
Erratic, no, yeah.
Well, not necessarily. You've spoken about Mike and how quite early on you kind of thought he was a traitor. You also correctly voted for Whitney when she was banished.
Oh, yeah.
On the other hand, you voted for, and you mentioned this, you voted for Molly 4 times, and now you know she was a faithful. I wonder if you could talk to us about why you voted for Whitney and why you continued to vote for Molly so many times.
I'll start with the Whitney one, because Whitney's an easy question. Whitney kind of, I thought the day that I woke up and it was, I was the last to survive the ordeal between the death row situation and the traitors and the faithful. I thought, I'm going to wake up, be the only one to walk in there, and everyone's going to target me. And I was surprised to see so many level-headed players. I mean, not everyone, mind you. Be like, it's fine. Like, we can't just assume you're the only traitor just because you're the only one that survived. Like, we got to move on. And Whitney had already come under suspicion because Whitney was someone who was seen from a lot of people as pulling the strings. And for me, I wasn't sold on Whitney. I wasn't sold on anyone, though, was my problem, because playing defense is hard, and you spend all day thinking, why do they suspect me? What do I say to people to get them to not suspect me? You don't have time to say, okay, well, what is Whitney and Mike and Jane and Terry and Wiramu and Janae? What are they all doing that's like weird? You don't have time for all that. There's 20 other people in the game, and you're really just worried about covering your own back. So when you're under suspicion, that takes up all your sweet time. Just dispelling why other people are suspicious of you. So I really didn't have time to do the whole offense thing. That said, Whitney, kind of the day of, I'd said something to Britt as well during the box challenge. I remember I was locked in the box on the beach, and Ciale and Utah had gotten our code wrong, actually. So Ciale and Utah had to run all the way back up and fix that. And while they're doing that, I said to Britt, because Britt and I had an early relationship, she was someone I could trust. I said, Britt, I want to talk about the game, and what do you think of, I said 2 names. One was Utah. She was like, I don't know about Utah, and I agreed with her. I was like, I'm kind of shaky, and I said Whitney, and she was like, Whitney 100%. And the more people I talked to about Whitney, in the car, at the manor, didn't matter, they were with it. Everyone was very onto Whitney, but I still was like, okay, well, now I'm annoyed, because it's like, I don't want to be the one that gets voted off, but I also don't want to have that be the reason I vote someone else who's a faithful off, because that's just ignorant. So I spoke to Whitney, and Whitney, actually, I don't think she was a bad traitor at all. But in this conversation, she put up every red flag in the book, because everyone else I spoke to treated it as this very delicate situation, the death row vote, where it was like, you're the last person left from death row. If we vote you out and you're a faithful, that's terrible. It does not work out. Like, it's terrible for us. And we spoke out with her, and me and her had a one-on-one, and she's like, yeah, I'm very worried because you're a very good communicator vocally. Yeah. So I don't want to go against you. And but that's all she said she was worried about. She was like, if you, then later she's like, yeah, if you get voted off and you're faithful, sucks, but it's the game. And I was like, that is where it got weird, because it was like, you know what I mean? I'm like, you're worried about facing me off head to head, but like in terms of actually voting and like getting people off, you're not worried about me leaving the game. So it was just very interesting. So from that moment on, I was like, okay, no, Whitney's definitely a traitor. But that conversation happened about 5 minutes before we went into roundtable. So I couldn't do much with the information. So I kind of just had to hold it, and then, went to the roundtable. And I was honestly, I knew enough people were considering Whitney. Steven had come up to me and said, I'm not suspicious of you, I'm suspicious of Whitney. Mike had done the same. Obviously, Mike was plotting his little, foil plot against Whitney. But I felt I honestly felt way worse the night when it was me, Bree, and Andrew at that round table. The next night when it was just me, I actually felt better because people had kind of moved on from me at that point because, they knew that it was silly to focus on one person.
Yeah.
There were a lot of good players.
And did you come after Molly so often to dispel this myth that you two might be in a secret relationship?
Yes, partly. Absolutely, yes, in a way. So when I first came on Molly for the Jackie vote, during the Jockey Molly vote, I came after Molly for two reasons. One was to dispel the rumors of us dating. Because the thing is, me and Molly already had a relationship. We liked each other. But I was just like, I can't go down on a sinking ship because people think that we're dating. It's not worth my whole game for me. So I was like, all right, I'll vote for Molly happily. If people think we're not dating, happily I'll vote for Molly. That was the main reason. And another reason was that I didn't really think Jackie was a traitor. I really thought Jackie was just a terrible, terrible faithful. Because Jackie really would just throw names out left, right, and center. And I was like, a traitor wouldn't do that. It's way too obvious. So I was like, surely she's just a terrible faithful who has no idea what's going on. And so I just kind of ignored it, So Jackie was a bad read on my part, of course. You have to admit that. You got to take responsibility. It was a bad read. And so for me, Molly just made sense at the first two votes because I was just not trying to get myself in these, what's the word? I guess you can call them situational and relationships where I'm her boyfriend or she's my girlfriend or we know each other somehow. Didn't happen, never did, never will, and it was just something I needed to make clear to the group. So I was like, okay, I'll vote for Molly. The second time I voted for Molly, and I'm talking same thing, same round table where there was the tie vote. When we had to revote, I said, okay, well, for me to change it to Jackie, I'm pretty 50-50 at this point because I'm not going out, so I don't care who it is. But if I vote Jackie, I have to explain why I changed it, and I don't really have a reason, so it's better just stick to Molly.
Yeah.
And yeah, so that was fine. The second time when I was really gunning for Molly, a lot of things made sense. And that's because of the way the game played out for those who weren't watching. At the time, we thought Jackie got out and there was no murder that night because they had to pick people to go on death row. What we thought as players was no one got murdered. There must have been a recruit. So we assumed that night there must have been a recruit. And for me, it made a lot of sense from the traitor's perspective to pick someone who looks great right now. Pick someone who's very clearly a faithful. And who looks more like a faithful than the person who went up against a traitor? One, the traitor got banished, looks like and they're a traitor. So it just, I was like, if I was a traitor, I would have absolutely picked Molly if I was recruiting that night. And we all thought they had. So it was very easy. It was very convenient for Molly to be an easy pick for the traitors. And Molly herself is just a very composed person. Molly is not someone who lets the pressure break her. And I don't trust people like that at all. Of course, now I know Molly's not a traitor, nor is she a bad person. But at the moment, I was just like, it's way too easy for you. You're having way too much fun. At the stage in the game that I started suspecting Molly hardcore, it was just everyone was miserable. I saw it on their faces. I saw wrinkles forming and I saw skin that was dehydrated, and I just saw these faces that were just depleted and degenerated from the amount of shit we had to go through. And Molly wasn't like that. Molly was up and ready to go every day, cheery and bright and rosy as a peach. But I realize now it's because, one, she's an emergency response worker, so she's seen way worse than this, and she's just a very strong person in general. So It's just not, I couldn't pin her on that. But was I still suspicious of her? Yes. And I can't even say I regret it, honestly. I mean, yes, I could have gone on more, but like I said, it was hard because I was always on defense. I did not have time for offense. There was no time for me to analyze people's shit. I spent every waking conversation just trying to convince them I'm not a traitor. So
Sure.
Actually, I was going to pause for a second anyway. Sorry if I go to the bathroom.
Okay, sorry.
No. Sorry, is that weird for someone to do a bathroom break during an interview? I assume it's not the first time.
No, I think it might be the first time.
Is it really? Oh, I'm sorry. I have a weak bladder. Oh, now I feel bad.
Now, I told you I had a couple of trivial questions, Noel. This is the time for me to ask some silly questions. Not silly questions, just less important questions in the grand scheme of things.
I'm sure that's silly. I'm ready for it.
I interviewed Jane on the podcast, and when I interviewed her, I told her I would ask you about this. At her banishment, she winked at you. Did you see the wink? Did you pretend you hadn't seen the wink? Were you completely oblivious to the wink?
I did not see the wink. I genuinely did not see it. And then when Utah was like, she winked at you. I saw Donna go, and Donna's nodding, and I just kind of went, sure, why not? At that point, I was at the point where I was like, for one thing, I didn't think Utah was lying. I believed that she did wink at me. I really did believe that with my heart. And now seeing it on camera, I know it's true at least. She did wink at me. Did it bother me? No. Because I know Jane and I had always had a solid relationship. We were, friends. I don't even want to say beyond the game. Me and Jane just had an awesome relationship. So for her to wink at me, I knew it was simply her being like, I tried to get you at the last second and you couldn't get me. Because another thing is, Whitney actually also winked at me. And I did talk this. I said this to people at the moment. When I voted for Whitney and I said, Whitney, I love you. I just think that you're a traitor. She gave me a nice old wink. And I was the only one who saw it, who caught it. And I pointed it out to people. I said, Jane, by the way, Whitney winked at me. I think it was in a very much, I tried to get you and you couldn't get me way. And that was for me defending the Jane wink, my backup. So it kind of came in handy. Because I was like, I was the one to say Whitney winked at me. I'm not denying Jane winked at me. Like, it doesn't mean that I'm a traitor. I think it just means that they were traitors who were just trying to get me and couldn't get me. So happy for them that, they winked at me and they were that casual in that moment. But at the same time, it's like, come on, you cannot be so adamant that anyone winked at me and said, he's a traitor because Jane or Whitney winked at him. And Jane even messaged me, sent me a private message after the show and said, I'm so sorry about the wink. I hope that didn't screw you over. I hope people weren't on you after that. And I said, they were, but don't worry. I knew what you were trying to do. And I meant that. It's very true. Like, I knew that she was just being Jane and trying to say, like, I tried to get you and I couldn't get you. Good on you. So it's okay. It's fine. But yes, do I think she winked at me? Absolutely, of course, yes. And not just because I've seen it, but even at the time, I believe Utah. Utah's a brilliant player, and he has no reason to lie. I could tell that with him. He had no reason to lie, no incentive, and he didn't need to. Anything Utah said was spoken with such conviction that you knew that he had no semblance of a lie behind it or between the lines. Like, everything was true. And it was easy to trust Utah, and that's why I was very wary of him. But at the same time, when he said that Jane winked at me, I didn't doubt it for a second.
Okay. The next really, really important question that I should have asked Donna, and I forgot, so I'm going to ask you. This is my chance. I would like you to settle some confusion. Something that happened in one of the later episodes. It sparked a bit of a debate between my co-host David Bloomberg and I. It sparked an Instagram poll on the podcast page. Was Paul Henry's first dog called Mr. Spanky with a P or Mr. Stanky with a T?
Mr. Spanky. Spanky.
That's what I thought. Okay.
Will anyone hear? I really pray that someone will hear my angst and confusion, because Ava, Fufu, I don't even remember the other one's names, but it was some shit like Fufu and Vivi. Are you gonna tell me Mr. Spanky is on the same lines? I don't feel bad at all for answering that question with a false. Like, that's whatever. Point being, yes, Paul Henry has some ridiculous dogs who are quite honestly. I have a very ugly dog. I'm candid about that. My dog is ugly. But he has some really nasty, ugly, hairless, nasty dogs. So I don't feel bad at all that I forgot their names. I'm a dog person. I love them. I don't love ugly ones. I don't feel bad about it. We should all just move on from the dog thing. I simply feel that ugly dogs don't get the love needed.
So are you confirming what I and the majority of the Instagram poll people thought, that it was Mr. Spanky with a P?
Mr. Spanky with a P.
Okay, thank you. Now, that was in episode 11, which also becomes your final episode on the show. Yeah, did you foresee your banishment that day? Did you know it was coming?
Yes, actually. And okay, I'm going to try and keep this answer short. I knew that I was in a bad position because I saw the alliances that had been formed that were there since day one. At the start of day 11, I said to myself, I will get Ciale out. I know he's a traitor. And I went to Jace and I went to Joe, and Joe and Jace both told me. nope, won't vote Ciale. He's her brother. Band brothers, like, we will not vote against him. And I was like, okay, awesome. So I was like, all right, maybe I can cult Bailey or Donna. And I talked to Bailey and Donna together and then separately. Donna was much more open to voting for Ciale, actually, whereas Bailey was very much averse to voting for Ciale. And she was very, oh, I don't think we can say, or I don't think we can know, which is fine early in the game. Now it's a bit, why can't you know? Why can't you say? So there's always that question of Bailey early, but at the same time, I couldn't do anything about it because at this point in the game, when it was just those 6 of us on the last day, all I could think in my head was big mistake that I made alliance-wise. Because now we had Joe, Jace, and Ciale in an alliance. We have Donna and Bailey in an alliance, and we have Noel, who is not in an alliance, nor has ever been. But I had something going with Kat. It's something going with Ben and Molly. And for me to vote out Molly, I always regretted that because I was like, she was someone who would vote with me, who would be on my team. What was the question originally? I'm so sorry. So embarrassing.
The question was simply if you thought you were going to be banished, like if you saw it coming that day.
I did see that coming that day. I knew that I was going to get banished the day that I was banished, and simply because I had my own target, which was Ciale, I'd spoken to all of his alliances, and all those were not even aligned with him. None of them really aligned with me on that. So I kind of said to myself, okay, well, here we are at the final 6. The traitors are probably where I'm at, and they're just trying to make it through the next round. Every night I went to bed, and I was not worried about getting murdered. I never once thought that I would get that letter. And I was right. And that's because, they wanted me there. I was an excellent scapegoat, an excellent last ticket to the next table. And I honestly think they played their hand too early. I think they could have easily gotten out Donna and then just taken me out at the first final round, or the final round table, I should say. But they didn't. So I don't know. I knew it was my time, but I wasn't upset because I felt that everyone, faithful and traitors included, were misplaying their hand. I knew I was a tool. I knew I was a vehicle to get from point A to point B. Mm-hmm. I just didn't know it would pan out like that. And I think that if Ciale had gotten rid of Donna, or if X had happened instead of Y, I would have made it farther, and that would have changed the dynamic greatly. But that's not the game. You can't be asking yourself what happens if X happened and Y happened as a result. It's just, you'll kill yourself thinking of all those possibilities.
Sure. And that actually leads on to, I've only really got a final couple of questions left, and both of them are from listeners. Joe, again, and you kind of answered this earlier, but I've got like a follow-up question. So Joe asks, would you have accepted recruitment if it had been offered to you? And earlier you said that I think you would have. Even though you knew lots of people suspected you, would you still have said yes anyway, just to play the game as a traitor?
Yeah, good question. No, so early in the game, I was very much of the opinion, if I got recruited, I would take it. I would take it. Until death row.
Okay.
Before death row, I had said to Mike adamantly, I will always accept recruitment, keep my line open. And after that point, I realized that at this point, if I'm recruited by the traitors, I am there for no other reason but to be a scapegoat, for them to point the finger at me, say, hey, he's definitely a traitor. We ignored him. Let's vote him out. Me get out and then say I'm a traitor, and then give everyone their good old laugh at the end of the day. And I'm just adamant. I'm like, no, not going to happen. So after death row, I said to myself, I said to Molly, I said Jane, I said to many people, I was like, if they try and recruit me, I will send them a big fat handwritten letter saying, no, fuck off. Like, stop dick riding. Like, no, really though. I was just ready really to go off with them. Like, the nerve to recruit me after all the shit you put me through. And it's honestly a principle thing at that point. At first, it's like a gameplay thing. At that point, it's a principle thing. I was just like, I will not accept. After death row, you just put me on death row and frame me for murder. I'm not joining your little club. All right. So, yeah, no. After that, I would have said no, unless blackmail, because I really admire Mark's decision. I think it was the coolest. Actually, it puts him in the Traitors Hall of Fame. He's really an awesome player, not just for that, but for the Jane late night reading as well. But I would have absolutely accepted blackmail because I just loved the game. I would have rather have kept playing the game than be out on some mindless stuff. But not to say that Mark's banishment was wasteful. I think Mark made one of the best decisions in the game. I think they were key to how the rest of it played out. And he was just brilliant. And Mark is awesome because funny thing about me and Mark had a great dynamic because everyone had this idea of Mark where Mark, says he's got the master plan, but he has no master plan. That was everyone's thing. Mark's got this gameplay that he has in his mind, but no one actually sees it played out. Whereas for me, I was very candid about the fact I have no idea what I'm doing. But everyone was like, no, Noel's got his game plan. Noel's got his master plan. And I was like, can someone please tell me what it is? Someone, I need to know. So I don't know. I don't have a master plan, but these people are convinced that I do. So it's quite an interesting dynamic between me and Mark, where he was the mastermind, but I was the one who was apparently the mastermind. So no, it was quite fun.
You've mentioned Bailey a couple of times. Of course, after you leave, Bailey ends up winning the season. And the last question I have really is, again, from Slim Shannon on Instagram, who asks, did Noel ever suspect Bailey? Did you think she was a traitor at any point?
Yes and no. And I'll explain why very briefly, is because when you get to those final 6, it's everyone's a traitor and no one's a traitor. Like, Bailey and Jace were equally susceptible to me. I knew one of them was a traitor. I knew that much. I knew Ciale was a traitor. We're Base and Ciale, Jace and Bailey. I had no idea because both of them had played a very similar game. Jace and Bailey both stayed under the radar, did not insert themselves into major conversations that happened. They had both kind of evaded the general attention of the public up until this point. There was no way for me to pin it on either of them. And the thing about Bailey that bothers me so much is that it'd be really easy for me to say, Bailey, no one suspected you. That's weird, and we should all vote you. But no one will vote her for that reason. Rightfully so. It's weird to vote for someone because they haven't had suspicion on them. Because I could say the same thing for Jace or Joe, but it's so easy at the time to be like, oh, it's clearly Bailey. It's not clearly Bailey. That's why she's a good traitor. That's why she won, and rightfully so. She knew what she was doing, and she knew how to avoid what's the word? Suspicion,
detection. Yeah.
So no, I mean, of course, I suspected Bailey in the sense I suspected Bailey more than Joe and Donna. Joe and Donna, I knew 100% were faithfuls. And I knew Ciale was a traitor, but in terms of Jace and Bailey, I was completely 50-50. Because even though Jace seems like the person who'd be more inclined to be a faithful, to reject recruitment, it just seems weird that, he's this military guy who made it this far and just was so analytical and just didn't add up for me. Bailey, on the other hand, was the perfect traitor because she had never had any suspicion on her, had avoided no one had ever been like, Bailey, this was weird, or Bailey, I suspect you, except Mark, of course, the brilliant Mark. But that was it. Besides that, it was very much low-key on Bailey, so credit to her. She's a great traitor.
And this isn't a question. This is just a little comment that I wanted to read. Michael is one of these sort of super fan on YouTube, has seen far more versions of the Traitors than I have. He watches all of the international non-English versions. And Michael had just left. He was rooting for you to win. He said Noel for the win. Right before on one of the episodes before you left. So Michael's a fan. I just thought I'd let you know about that. Now, Noel, we've almost come to the end of our time, but before you leave us, we have to conclude the game that we've been playing. We've been playing the Traitor. We've been trying to deceive one another, tell a lie. I confess that I have told you a lie at some point during our chat, Noel. Did you lie to me at some point?
Yes, I did lie to you, but
Okay.
oh, I feel a bit bad about it though.
Well, I've got like a whole. You gave me a lot of content, so I've got a whole bunch of things written down.
I know, I feel
Lie.
bad. I don't know. Do you have an editor or you edit this yourself?
Oh, it will be me.
Oh,
So
I feel so bad for
yeah.
you. Okay, great.
I'm gonna
Yeah.
I'm gonna
Anyways,
talk. I'll talk you through my possibilities, and then I'll tell you which one I'm going for.
okay, go ahead. Go ahead.
A
You
lot
go
of mine
first.
are like geography based. So, like you said, your mom was from New Zealand, and I thought maybe that was not true, and it was somebody else in your family. You talked about Molly being from Vancouver. I thought that could quite easily be a lie. You mentioned a place you had been last week, I think maybe you said, or a place that you were recently in New Zealand, and I thought you could have completely fabricated that. You mentioned that you were on a French dating show. Who knows? Maybe it was a Spanish dating show or an Italian dating show or no
Oh,
dating
you
show at
fool! You
all.
absolute fool! That was on the show for Two Truths and a Lie. No shit, I was on a French dating show.
Of
You
course, of
absolute
course.
fool.
Um, you, you, uh, you could have told me a gigantic lie. Like maybe Molly and you are in a relationship and you've lied this entire time and you've pulled the
Totally
wool over
possible.
my eyes. Maybe when you said that you had to go to the bathroom during a recording, that you just went and stood at the side for 5 minutes and you weren't really.
Absolutely, possibly. Yeah.
I'm gonna go for uh actually one more thing I didn't mention, and I'll go for this. You said that you had to get up at like 5 a.m. and were blindfolded, and I wonder if maybe that was not quite true.
No, that was absolutely true.
Uh
Oh, I'm
okay.
sorry. You
What
actually you hit the nail on the head about
what?
2 minutes, like literally 30 seconds before. I thought you were gonna guess that actually. No, I did not have to go to the bathroom. I just was like, all right, let me take 2 minutes to just like debrief. I also had to wake my brother up because my brother gets up at like 2 p.m. But as mostly just no, I did not have to go to the bathroom at all. That was my lie.
I
I
should
just
have
got
stuck
up.
with it.
You should have, because I was shocked when you. I was like, he surely won't get to the bathroom thing. And when you mentioned it, I was like, oh, fuck.
I
So, and
think
that's the thing is, I'm not a good liar. I don't talking. I don't know.
I think I guessed that because I did that once on the podcast to someone and pretended I had to leave and I didn't. So I think something about it like triggered a
For
memory
me,
for
it
me.
was just like, yeah. For me, it was a memorable thing to be, oh, I gotta go to the bathroom. It's not, but whatever.
What do you think I lied to you about?
Oh, what you lied to me about? Oh, that's a really good question. Shit, I didn't even let you talk. To be honest, I just yapped the whole time. It's a bit of a problem of mine. You're not really Scottish. You can't be.
What? Do you think I'm like faking this accent?
Yes, I think you're really English. I think I think you're actually from Manchester.
That is not my lie.
No, I know I know it's not, but I honestly could not think of it. I know it's not.
I'll tell you the truth. My lie was when I asked you about I mean this it was true for most of the way and then I just lied to a lie at the end. David and
Oh,
I, the co-host, did have a discussion about whether or not Paul's dog was Mr. Spanky or Mr. Stanky. However, I didn't put it wasn't an Instagram poll and I got listeners to vote on it. That bit I invented. It was just me and David talked about it for like 10 seconds.
oh, annoying. See, I told you I'm not on Instagram, so how would I know? But
Well,
it's fine.
exactly. That's why I thought I might get away with it.
We have a logo. That's all right. I'll let it go.
Noel, thank you so much for joining us on the Trader. I hope you have enjoyed your time reliving these memories and talking about the show again.
It was awful. Thanks. I'd love nothing more than to regret that I ever did this experience. But yeah, thank you.
Well, thank you for your insight. Thank you for giving us a very detailed clarification of a lot of things. I know a lot of
Yeah,
listeners were really excited to hear you from you on the podcast, so it's been really, really great. Thank you. I will
thank
talk
you.
to you soon. Take care. Bye bye.
Bye. Thank you.
Hello again, Trader listeners. I hope you enjoyed my chat with Noel. It was great having him on the podcast. It's been great having all of the guests on the podcast. I really, really enjoyed that one today. If you've been listening to the past few episodes, you'll have heard me saying my mission was to get us to 100 Spotify reviews. And since the previous episode with Mark, my dream has come true. The podcast is currently at 101 reviews. Hooray! Thank you to everyone who helped out and left a lovely 5-star rating. Although please don't let it stop you if you haven't already. Next goal, 200 reviews. We can do it. You can do that, or you can subscribe, or both, on iTunes, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Amazon Music, YouTube, Castbox, Acast, wherever you listen. It helps the pod stay higher in search results, helps new listeners find it, and it keeps the podcast alive and helps me create more content for you. Couple of final things before we finish. It's not over. A reminder yet again that you can vote for the Traitors in the British Podcast Awards in the Listener's Choice category. You can find it online really easily and it's free and quick to vote. The deadline is Thursday the 29th of August. For now, this is the last episode planned for Traitors New Zealand Season 2. What a season it's been. Maybe things will change. Sometimes I say it's the last episode and then someone else comes on for an interview, which would be amazing. For now, this is all that's planned. I've loved doing these contestant interviews. The Traitors will probably take a little break for now, but I'm sure I'll be back with something in the coming months. Perhaps a different international version, or maybe even a different show altogether, before Season 3 of UK and US, which are happening early next year. And in case you missed the news on the Traitors social media, the BBC have now officially confirmed two things. Firstly, a new Celebrity UK version due to film in 2025, as well as a Season 4 of the regular show. It's already been recommissioned. In fact, just this week at the Edinburgh TV Festival, audience members were treated to a sneak peek at the new season, and I don't want to say too much and get in trouble, but the missions look even more epic and creepy, and apparently there is a new change to the game that will potentially grant players a power greater than any power before. So, looking forward to that. The podcast is certainly not going anywhere for some time. And you can keep up to date with the podcast and Traitors News on Instagram, TikTok and YouTube at The Traitors Podcast, or on X at The Traitors Pod, or you can get in touch with any questions, or if you just fancy a chat, by emailing me at thetraitorpodcast@gmail.com. Lastly, for the final time this season, if you've been enjoying these episodes, you want to hear more, you want the podcast to keep going, it would really help out if you can, if you're able, to take a little visit to the coffee page for the podcast. That's at ko-fi.com/Matthew Keeley. And you can put in a really, really small donation. It's not a subscription. It's just a one-off thing. Lots of you have done it already, and I'm very, very grateful. You've really helped out with the podcast, so thank you for that. Until I next join you then, whenever that is, keep us on your Traitors.